Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of Staley, Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I am your host, Joey Harris. Folks, this past week, it was just insane. My wife called me. She's been working hard at school. She's a teacher. And the past 2 weeks have just been crazy. And so she's been working late every night. And so she called me Friday night. She was leaving at a halfway decent time, and just as we start talking, her tire, she gets a flat tire. Her passenger side rear tire. She turns around and goes back to school, calls AAA, and they put the spare on. And that just set the mood for the entire weekend. She still needed gas in her car, so she comes and picks me up. We're on the spare, get gas, and there's a Denny's across the street from the gas station. I said, let's just eat there. They've got the spaced apart seating there at Denny's. But as a result of that, you can't seat as many people. So we go in and we give our name and our phone number, and the woman says, go outside, wait in your car. The wait will be about 30 minutes. Now, I like Denny's. I don't love Denny's. I'm not waiting 30 minutes to go to Denny's. So my wife calls a local place that we love. No wait at all. We went there. Food was really good. Had too much. Brought home leftovers. So that just put a damper on this past weekend. But regardless of that, today we continue our look at 1990. We are up to June of 1990, and today we are looking at Clash of the Champions from NWA and WCW. This was Clash of the Champions 11. Coastal Crush took place on June the 13th, 1990, from the McAllister Fieldhouse on the campus of the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. There were 4,100 fans in attendance, and the show did a 4.1 rating on TBS. Tony Schiavone welcomes us to Charleston. He runs down some of the matches that we are going to see before throwing it to Jim Ross and Bob Caudle. They preview some of what we are going to see before going to our first match. The Wild-Eyed Southern Boys, Tracy Smothers and Steve Armstrong, versus the Fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael Hayes. The Freebirds attack early. The Southern Boys come back. Armstrong hits a big cross body. The crowd is riled up against the Freebirds. The Freebirds regain the advantage. Garvin bumping for Smothers. Hayes hits a clothesline on Smothers. Consider this point. Hayes is a longtime veteran here, and he just turned 31. Armstrong hits a headbutt on Garvin and puts Smothers on top to win. Our next match, Tommy Rich versus Bam Bam Bigelow with Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Speaking of wrestlers and their ages, Rich is 33 years old here. That is unbelievable to me. Rich tries speed to take down Bigelow. Rich gets a 2 count with the schoolboy. Bigelow comes back. Bigelow is choking Rich, but doesn't break on the 5 count and gets disqualified. We then have a video on Big Van Vader, who will be debuting at the Great American Bash. Gary Michael Capetta introduces El Gigante. They do a feel-good interview in Spanish, then Capetta interprets. He's happy to be in WCW. The Samoan SWAT team, Fatu and the Savage, versus Mike Rotunda and Tom Zink. Faces with the early advantage. The SST come back with hard shots. Back and forth, and the crowd is getting into it. Z-Man clears the ring. The SST gets Z-Man down. When the referee isn't looking, Zink and Rotunda trade places, and Rotunda gets a roll-up for the win. A video on Mean Mark. Mean Mark Callis with Paulie Dangerously versus Brian Pillman. Speed versus power. Pillman takes a big bump to the outside. His football career is brought up if you're drinking at home. Callis in control. Pillman comes back. The crowd is solidly in Pillman's corner. Pillman hits a top rope drop kick. He jumps off again, but Mean Mark catches him and hits a stun gun and pins Pillman. Tony Schiavone interviews Sting. He says he has dudes with attitude with him. The Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson versus the Midnight Express, Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton with Jim Cornette. NWA United States Tag Team Championship match. Folks, if you're going to watch a match from this show, this would be the match to watch. These two teams can go on autopilot against each other. The rock and roll chant goes out early as they have the advantage. Back and forth, all four in the ring at one point. Double pin situation at one point, but the rock and roll can't get the win. Morton and Eaton both tumble over the top rope at one point. Gibson has Lane in a sleeper. Eaton hits him with a double axe handle, but only gets a 2 count. Rock and Roll hit a double drop kick. Lane pulls referee Nick Patrick away, so Patrick disqualifies the Midnight Express. Doug Furnas versus Barry Windham. Furnas is very tan here. JR, of course, talks about Furnas and his athletic career, so take a shot. Windham with the early advantage. Then he plays to Furnas' strength, which is power. Crowd is behind Furnas. Windham comes back. Furnas gets several 2 counts. Windham sneaks out a pin with his foot on the ropes. Sid Vicious with Ole Anderson versus Lex Luger. Anderson and Vicious attack Luger, who fights back. Luger hits a quick clothesline and pins Vicious. This match is over way too quickly. Jim Ross and Bob Caudle talk about the Bash pay-per-view coming up. World Tag Team Championship match. Doom, Butch Reed, and Ron Simmons with Teddy Long versus the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott. Scott hits a reverse slam on both members of Doom. Go ahead with who is wrestling here and take a shot so that you can save your livers. Scott with the big moves, but he doesn't go for a pin. Rick tagged in to a big ovation. Reed rolls out to slow the momentum. Rick follows and gets nailed by Simmons. A peanut head chant goes out towards Long. Back and forth match. Simmons lands an axe handle, then collapses. Scott tagged in. All four then in the ring. Reed hits Scott with an object. Then there's a double pin. Doom are the winners since Scott and Simmons are the legal men. Tony Schiavone interviews JYD. He says tonight is his night. Paul Orndorff versus Arn Anderson. Arn's TV title is not on the line in this match. Orndorff's athletic background is brought up, so take a shot. Two great wrestlers here. The crowd goes crazy when Orndorff gets a sleeper on. They counter each other. Anderson gets put into the figure 4, but he gets to the ropes. Anderson's leg is hurt, but he comes back. Orndorff pulls the back of Anderson's tights down, and the crowd loves it. Anderson then puts Orndorff in a sleeper. Orndorff comes back. They knock into each other, but both get up at 8. Anderson catches Orndorff coming off and puts an inside cradle on him, but Orndorff reverses it to win. Tony Schiavone talks to the Horsemen. Ole Anderson says the Horsemen will not let anyone take Flair's belt. Flair says victory is guaranteed. NWA World Heavyweight Championship match. Ric Flair versus the Junkyard Dog. Flair is accompanied by Ole Anderson. Flair making JYD look good. JYD's best days might be behind him, but he's working hard too. JYD no-selling all of Flair's offense, and the crowd loves it. A big JYD chant goes out. Flair begging off. He goes out and grabs Bob Caudle's chair and hits JYD with it, who no-sells it. "Let me get my chair back," says Bob. That is the line of the night.
Ric Flair trying to get Bob. He's got Bob Caudle's chair.
He jerked it right out from under me, Jim.
Ole Anderson's got the referee distracted. He just nailed a dog with that chair, and it didn't even faze him.
Let me get my chair back.
Flair gets caught going off the top rope, so take a shot. Anderson climbs up on the apron and JYD pops him. Flair gets slammed off the top rope. JYD goes after Flair, but Anderson comes in for the DQ, followed by the rest of the Horsemen. They beat down JYD, but Sting, Lex Luger, and Paul Orndorff make the save. Jim Ross interviews Rocky King, who's tired of the Horsemen, but says the boys with attitude are here. Sting says he's got the game plan down and wants his title shot. He's begging Flair. The Horsemen then come back. Flair and Sting going at it as the credits roll, and they sign off from Charleston. Our drinking tally is 5 shots, and Bob Caudle has the memorable line of the night.
Let me get my chair back.
If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast platform of choice. There are a number of ways that you can contact me. You can follow the show's Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Joey Harris. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from Stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.